Hello garden lovers! This is part 2 of our garden tour. And if you missed part 1, I will attach a link in the upper right hand corner for you to check out. In part 1, we shared our main garden area where we're growing most of our vegetables like tomatoes, greens, hundreds of chilies, cucumbers, tomatillos, corn, kale, plums, and apples. But we are growing food all over our half-acre space. And in this video, we will be sharing how creative we get in growing food all over our edible landscape. Growing in front of me in this beautiful rustic container that my husband designed is red and green Malabar spinach. What a beautiful way to grow Malabar spinach. It is climbing up these bamboo stakes, and as you probably know, it can grow up to 30-foot vines. So it's just continuing to grow along this privacy fence. So much delicious greens here, and they look so beautiful growing by our family area. The red Malabar is putting out thousands of seeds. So if you're interested in growing some red Malabar spinach, drop me a note in the comments and we will send some free seeds out to the first 100 people. Down below the Malabar are more tree collards just starting out. If you follow our channel, then you know that we like to grow tree collards all over our edible landscape. They do so well growing in so many different areas. They grow in direct high heat areas, they grow in partial shade areas, they could take the cold. They put out so much greens and they're so tasty. I love them and the chicks love them. So we try to fit them in as many places as possible. And as you can see, this tree color is getting ravaged by pests. Could be slugs, caterpillars, grasshoppers. We have it all going on here. So I'll have to come out in the evening when the sun sets and see who's doing this damage. Here are a couple of grand name banana trees. They look so beautiful growing in this family area, but we're at about 1,700 feet above sea level, so they don't like the cold temps. And in January, they die back, but they bounce back every year and continue to look beautiful. And of course, we're growing tomatoes everywhere. Here is my favorite cherry tomato plant. It's a husky. It's a high producing, very large cherry tomato. You can see here so many tomatoes on this plant, and they're delicious. This plant is actually growing in a partial shade area. It gets sun for the majority of the day until after 1 when the high heat comes in. This area is shaded and this plant is loving it here. We're saving seeds from the largest cherry tomato off of this plant, and we'll be planting them in a container and growing them in the greenhouse throughout the winter months. Here is a black beauty and a black Russian, and you can see they're in shade already. They get some morning sun, but like that husky cherry tomato over there that's still in the sun, these guys unfortunately are not, and they're not doing so hot. Some cherry tomato plants will do okay in a partial shade, and you can see that one is producing really well, but lots of tomato plants do very poor in partial shade, and these guys are definitely doing poor. Do have a couple of black Russian tomatoes, but we're not going to get much off of these plants. And here is the bed where we're growing most of our big beefs. I mentioned in our garden tour part 1, where the larger big beets were growing. It's right here. Almost ready to harvest. Again, so delicious. These plants are doing great. They're loving growing in this spot. Full sun. They get beat on quite a bit. And you can see here we got the shade cloth that comes down in the hottest part of the day, because from here on out it's going to be all mid-90s and hundreds. And thankfully the gophers have not disturbed the tomato plants. They have went after our garlic. Unfortunately, I think we've lost almost our whole harvest of our garlic. But the tomato plants are doing well, and most of the chili plants and the onions. Here's some Cherokee purple. Love that tomato. And these last two are Kellogg's breakfasts. And same situation for these plants as in part one. The Kellogg's breakfast that's trellising up that arch. When we had that heat wave, the blossoms were dropping like crazy. But now that we've got them covered in the hottest part of the day, you could see all the tomatoes that have set in. You can hear that sniffing in the background. Jet is convinced that there is a lizard under that shade cloth. Betty, you found a friend? All right, let me pop up here. Oop, get out of the shadow. And this is just the back side. Lots of delicious tomatoes to harvest very soon. Up here we have grapevines. Here are our new compost bins that my husband designed. And we have a video that we'll be sharing very soon on this very easy design, inexpensive, and is working much better than the tumblers. The onions are ready to harvest, most of them. So again, so grateful that the gopher didn't start taking out our onions, because man, we got some beauties in here. These are expression, very large yellow onion with very long storage capabilities. All along this grass area, we are growing food. On the back end of the grass area, we have lots of fruit trees. And it's hard to see, but we have fruit trees, very young fruit trees inside the grass area. And you can see there's lots more room for fruit trees. We're going to be getting in another weeping Santa Rosa plum in that grass area. It's one of the most beautiful trees. Here is some ornamental corn and some popcorn. We have astronomy and painted mountain and calico. It's a beautiful popcorn. Over here we have cantaloupe growing. We're growing hearts of gold and Haley's jumbo. Let me see if I can find a couple. Here we are, getting close to homegrown, delicious cantaloupes. These are some of the most juicy cantaloupes I've ever eaten. We saved the seeds from a couple years ago. Completely different from store-bought cantaloupes. And here we have some citrus trees growing. We have lime, grapefruit. In the back we have a citrus salad tree and some gojis. A couple of goji bushes. This is the Sweet Life. And it's hard to see, but it's packed full of goji berries. Lots of them are still green, so they don't stand out. They kind of look like leaves. We get those guys frozen. Super fruit. And my favorite area is the watermelon patch. We have some artichokes growing in here also. Got artichokes growing everywhere. And here we have some sugar babies. They're growing all throughout these beautiful zinnias. There's some back there. It's hard to see. We have mini love back there. Did not do well at all. I'll try it again next year. I love the description. It's a compact watermelon grown in small spaces. Sounded great for containers. We're also growing it in a container in another part of the garden, and it's not doing well over there either. So not sure about that seed, but we'll give it another try next year. Here we have Saskatchewan. Those were the free seeds that we shared in our video, planting and growing watermelons. Those came from Sustainable Seed Company. Excited to try that variety. And a couple of more. Here we have Sangria. It's going to be a very large watermelon. And I like to label the areas where we're fertilizing. We've got that calendar in my cottage that I showed in part 1 of our garden tour, where we record all the details of what we've done as far as fertilizing and feeding and what needs to be done. But these little cute sticks are very handy because, as I mentioned, we're on a half an acre, and so that way I don't have to keep walking back and forth. So for instance here, fed these guys with a Dr. Earth fertilizer mix on 628. Nice and handy. Oh, how cute. That baby pumpkin starting. Here we have some leftover watermelons. They're not growing inside of our watermelon patch. They were extras and I just couldn't throw them away. What happened, buddy? Oh, the thorns of the berry bush. Gotcha. But they're doing wonderful over here. Got a watermelon. And a few more growing. And this is where the gopher is living. He's living all in this decomposed granite hill. And here is a cherry tree. It's loving the spot. This decomposed granite hill has lots of minerals. The cool thing about this cherry tree is it's got 5 different varieties growing. At our last property, we had cherry trees. They did wonderful. We're really excited for this one to mature and to have fresh cherries. Here is our custom greenhouse that my husband designed. In the summer months, we just remove the windows. They have these beautiful antique windows. And we grow all kinds of stuff. We've got some peppers in there, some sunflowers, potatoes, some cucumbers. This right here is the husky that we grew all winter long in our greenhouse. When we transplanted it, it broke a branch. Then it ended up getting way too heavy and toppling over. You can see there it's got hundreds of cherry tomatoes still. So now it just drapes over and is continuing to produce tomatoes. As soon as we cool off, we're going to start growing more peppers in here. This is where the Thai chilies are going to grow, and we'll probably put some tomatoes in here also for the winter months. Here is a red ember. They're a large cayenne. We're going to be powdering our own cayenne. I put cayenne on almost everything. Back here are some jalapenos. They love growing in here. Looking beautiful. And then back there are some serranos. Like I mentioned before, we can never have too many chilies. Got some sunflowers, some potatoes, and here is a Market More cucumber. As I mentioned in our part 1 garden tour, we are succession planting our cucumbers. One of our favorite meals is Mediterranean night with all kinds of vegetables, some pita bread, some hummus. Such a delicious, healthy dinner. And we'll also be growing some cucumbers through the winter in the greenhouse. The urban farmer mentioned this amazing cucumber. It's a cocktail cucumber from Johnny Seeds that we're picking up. Very, very productive cocktail cucumber that we're going to be trying in the winter months. I mentioned at the beginning of this video how creative we get in growing food. Let me show you what I mean. Here is our family sitting area where we are growing Malabar spinach. There is asparagus in there. If I come down here, we've got some cilantro starting, some edible daisies, got some plumerias, more asparagus over there, and more Malabar spinach. So wherever we can add food, we're going to do it. The asparagus is going to give us food for decades. The Malabar spinach looks so beautiful, draping out over this planter. And really what we're going to do next is replace this green Malabar with red, because these vines are just not very flexible. They're kind of more rigid, and they don't like to twist around the bamboo stakes as much as the red Malabar. So as long as the weather permits, we'll be growing Malabar spinach in this area, some herbs, as much cilantro as possible. This is a great area because it's got a shade cloth right over it. It gets a ton of sun, but it's protected from the intense heat also. My favorite flower, plumerias. We're growing plumerias everywhere. And I have a video that I'll be sharing very soon on growing a free plumeria tree. So if you're interested in growing a free plumeria tree, hit the subscribe button. Here is our bell pepper bed. You could see these beauties are super happy and healthy. And it wasn't so a few weeks ago until we got this shade cloth installed. Our nighttime lows still reach in the 50s. And once we got these guys covered, you could see their leaves are nice and smooth. Very happy plants. But for our green chili bed, we don't cover those up, and every morning when I go out in the early morning hours, the leaves are sticking straight up and they're kind of wrinkled. You could just tell that they're stressed out plants. But we don't go through the trouble of covering up our green chili bed because they're producing plenty of fruit. But these guys were struggling pretty bad when they were maybe about half this size. So I popped off all their flowers starting. Oh geez. All right, we have a aphid infestation. Whenever you see lots of ants, you know that there's aphids right there, because the ants love their little sweet nectar that they leave behind on the plant. But anyway, popped off the blossoms, got them covered, and boy, they bounced back. They're doing beautiful. So here we have Red Ninja, Sweet Sunrise, and Night, and they're all big blocky bell peppers. And right next to it is one of our asparagus beds. And over here under the shade cloth is a very depressing sight. The gopher has taken out 2 delicious varieties of garlic. So I'm doing some research on how to grow garlic from these little, I believe they're called bobils. Takes quite a long time, 2 seasons, but it's going to be fun to watch how the whole process goes in growing garlic. That little turkey has just been in here, and when we pull him up, there's just no roots at all. The roots are just munched down. So apparently he likes the flavor of garlic roots. We have many fruit trees growing on our property. We have nectarines, apricots, apples, many different types of citrus, plums, avocados, but this one is our absolute favorite, a mango. And I'm not sure what's going on here. It's got some little curly thing going on. But we are so excited to finally be growing mangoes. We went through 3 other trees before we finally got this one. We were buying young mango trees and they just couldn't take either the harsh heat because they were too young when we planted them, or the low temps. As I mentioned, we're at 1,700 feet above sea level and we get down to about 28, 26 degrees. So we bought a more mature mango tree. It cost quite a bit more, but it was more established, much stronger tree. And then my husband built this lattice cover over it. So now in the winter months, we just get it wrapped up with some very thick plastic, and it's like it's living in its own greenhouse. Yes, we are going through a lot of trouble to have a mango tree, but it's our favorite fruit. This entire bed in front of the greenhouse is all the chicks' food. We've got kale, tree collards, Swiss chard, strawberries. They love it when we walk over here and they see us picking some leaves. They get their happy feet going because they know that we're bringing them a delicious treat. Here is one of my husband's rustic creations that we will have available on our website once we get it up and running. Oh, the sprinklers came on. All right, let's get these girls some greens. Hey, beautiful girls. Hi. You guys want some delicious greens? I've got some tree collards. Hi. And we are growing grapevines all over. This beautiful grapevine is offering some shade over the girls' chick run. And if I could zoom in, these are the flame seedless grapes. All right, let's get you beautiful girls some greens. There we go, now we have some happy girls. And Jet's wondering where his tree collard's at. He loves the stems. Is that good, Pep? Tear it up. This is the back of the girls' run. And these plants that look a mess right now is the Italian dandelion going into seed. The girls love this also. They eat it throughout the day. When we're in the yard, we just pick a few leaves and they love to munch on it. High in vitamin C. And here is, it's starting again. Just going through another round. And here is the beautiful flame seedless grapes. Gorgeous. And like I say with peppers, we can never have too many peppers. It's the same for berries. We can never have too many berries. And I'm not going to hit up all of the spots we're growing berries, but Right now we're on the hill. This is Berry Hill. And then we have Blueberry Row, where we're growing 6 blueberry plants, more growing in the front yard. And then we have Berry Row, where we're growing blackberries, more raspberries, and kiwis. I'm all about growing as much food as possible that is low maintenance and nutrient dense. Berries are at the top of that list. And here is our all seasons raised bed. We are so determined to grow greens throughout the year, even in the hot summer months, that we get very creative. This is our latest experiment, and we'll be sharing the design with you and the heat tolerant lettuce varieties in an upcoming video. We call it all seasons because we're growing in July. It's typically very hot, mid-90s to over 100, but when the winter months come, we're converting this into a greenhouse, and we'll grow a delicious greenhouse tomato variety or maybe even some cucumbers. This is still in an experimental stage, but everything is looking really good so far. This area is mostly shaded until late afternoon, so the blueberries do well over here. We planted some more blueberries, they're very young. The arugula just seeds itself in this area. And more blueberries, more kale. We can't grow enough kale. The chicks just love kale, and so do I. Here is some purple basil growing with the kumquat. Smells so great. And a tree collard. You could see how this tree collard stretched itself out into an area where it was going to get plenty of sun. It was planted way back there. It just grew and stretched. And look at it now. It's huge, it's beautiful, and it's super tasty. It's in partial shade until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it is seeing sun from one of the hottest times of the day, but not for very long, maybe for just about an hour, and then the sun starts going down and cooling off a bit. These tree collards are amazing. They're very versatile in the growing locations that they thrive in. And I have lots of seeds available, so if you'd like some, then drop me a note in the comments and I'll send some out to you. All right, I need to get this video wrapped up. It's already going way too long again. Here is another beautiful grapevine, but the difference with this one is it's just covered in bunches of grapes. And the only thing I could figure is it's getting way more water. Come around on this other side. Just bunches of grapes everywhere. This one is climbing up our patio cover. So by next year, it's going to be absolutely beautiful. And the bunches of grapes will be hanging down through the patio cover. Here is some container vegetables. Got this baby beet. It's a perfect snack size beet. It's about the size of a radish. And just wanted to stop by our Thai basil tree. I mentioned in part 1, we had a Thai basil plant that's over 5 feet tall. There it is behind this Lincoln rose. And it is so huge. It smells so amazing. It's got quite a bit of bare spots because it's been here for several years. And it does get attacked by the frost. Look at the trunk on that guy. It's a small tree. We planted another Thai basil right at the base of it. And as that grows up, then we'll probably replace it and get this large one cut down, but that's going to be very difficult for me. All right, that's it for now. The garden has been taking a beating from these summer temps, but we got this shade cloth installed and it's going to help our plants to last a bit longer. Hope you guys enjoy your week and enjoy your garden.